We continue the Shir in Sichos HaRan, sayings of Arizal. We are at Sif Ayin Zayin, paragraph 77. Arizal says something which seems very obvious. Everyone knows about this, everyone is aware of it, yet not everyone takes this point to heart. Arizal says the world is filled with conflict, dissension, battles, and there is a constant war being waged somewhere on this globe. One or more wars at all times. These wars that take place between countries, between nations, between empires, generally are due to the whims on the part of the private individuals who control these nations. If a king does not like a statement made about him by a monarch of a different nation, he'll send out his armies into battle, disregarding the fact that he is sending innocent people to their deaths. Thousands upon thousands of soldiers will die because of the kings being unable to tolerate a simple insult. And his disregard for human life is such that not only the enemy's soldiers mean nothing to him, but even his own men, those who are loyal to himself. Same thing applies to most leaders of nations. When they have these conferences of nations united or divided, if one of the leaders feels that he resents a statement made by someone else, or the Maharani of India, a woman is insulted by someone making a remark about her long nose, and she feels it's worth sending out 1,000,000 men, 1,000,000 Indians to die, to defend her honor. Menachem says these leaders, these rulers, never stop to think about the tachlis. There is a goal in life, and this goal must be reached by everyone, because it's not the soldiers alone that are going out to die, but these kings and rulers too will eventually die. More or less time, but they too will die. They should think about the tachlis. They will not live eternally on, which means that they too will have to give an account for every single drop of blood that they caused to be shed. And this, of course, they disregard, they ignore this important lesson. And this takes place too, to a lesser degree, in a smaller form. You have political conflicts on a state-wide basis, or city, rural, villages. And you even have these battles that take place in private homes. In a home, in a family too, there are people that get into arguments, debates, and a hatred flares up. This too is because of the fact that they refuse to consider, to think about the tachlis, the goal. Menachem says that it is something that sometimes cannot be avoided. In a home, it's important to note that how come in a family where you have brothers and sisters, parents and children, and yet there is sometimes a conflict that is so serious that it brings about to a lifelong hatred in that family. There is a split that is rendered in the family itself. This is because each person in the family is in a category of a nation. Each person has certain qualities, characteristics of a nation. One nation is warlike, one nation is peaceful, one nation is imperialistic, wants more territory, one nation is willing to settle for less. One person in the family wants more than he has and is willing to take it by force from the weaker members of the family. So that each individual resembles a type of nation, and in general the entire family resembles the family of nations in the world. And therefore we find sometimes that there can be one person in the family who is very peaceful, he's very passive, does not want to enter into or be drawn into a family argument. And yet against his will, he's drawn into it. Same as you find a neutral country that would rather have peace, would rather make peace, would rather even surrender, rather than go into battle at these tremendous losses. And sometimes there's no way that this country is given the chance to surrender, because since there are two nations battling each other, each one will try to force this nation on their side, automatically making it the enemy of its opposition. So too in the family also, one is drawn in against his will. He'd rather be passive, and yet he finds himself right in the middle of the conflict, getting a beating for no fault of his own. This is the nature of nations, the nature of people, and in many cases it cannot be avoided due to the fact that this is normal and natural. There must be these heated feelings let out. A person sometimes will explode in anger because he has to give vent to these feelings. He has a very warm type of nature, fiery type of nature, and he cannot keep it within himself. Therefore, the Arizal says that it is possible for a person who is isolated, a hermit, stays alone on a lonely island, that this hermit can actually go insane because of his loneliness. The reason is that within himself, he reaches a boiling point. He's got to give vent to these feelings. He has nobody to argue with, so that within himself there is this explosion causing his mind to give way. And that is why a person should always see to it that he has a chavruta, he has a friend, a good friend, whom he can argue with. The Gemara says that even in the study of Torah, which is the word of Hashem, it is something so sacred, and yet we find that in the study of Torah you have the two best friends in the world, or even a father and son, or a Rebbe and a student. When both discuss an item in Gemara, there'll be a natural tendency to disagree about the statement they are discussing. And this disagreement becomes so intense that they begin to actually insult each other. There is a hatred that is fanned. The result, though, the end result in the study of Torah is, the Gemara says, it's vohe besufa. Though there is this conflict in the beginning, the end is always a deeper friendship than originally, because of the fact that eventually they will see eye to eye. Since the Torah is Kodesh, it is holy and one, this is the nature of Torah that brings peace. The Arizal says all this takes place now. There will come a time, the Mashiach will come very shortly. The Mashiach's coming is to bring peace to the entire world. He will bring peace to all the nations on earth. He will bring peace to the individual families on earth. How will this be done? It will be done because of the seichel that will be prevalent then. The world will be filled with intelligence, with knowledge, with understanding. This will lead to peace. Therefore we have discovered something very precious, very priceless. That if, in the case of a private home, there is a battle or a conflict between members of the family, or more important, between a husband and wife, if there is a serious argument causing a rift between husband and wife, this means the essence of golus, exile. This means the lack of intelligence, the lack of brains that exists in that family. And therefore, if one of the two, or both husband and wife, want to literally bring a bechina, a category of Mashiach in that home, have Mashiach come privately to that home, they simply have to make peace, to arouse their brain power, their intelligence, their understanding that battle and conflict is futile, will gain them nothing, it is not beneficial at all, to make peace no matter how, by one giving in to the other, by making up, by deciding to compromise, but there should be peace. In this way, they literally bring Mashiach to that home. And this is due, of course, to the fact that they are working with sense, with intelligence. So a husband and wife, or any members of the family who are intelligent, can bring themselves to a category of the time of Mashiach. When Mashiach does come, then of course there'll be enough intelligence throughout the world that only peace will reign at that time forever afterwards. There'll be no more wars of any kind. In fact, even the animal life will become intelligent. It says that even the wild animals will live together in peace and harmony. So great will be the knowledge that will exist at that time. And of course, that time, we stress again, is very, very near, very close. We expect it momentarily. And we can see the wise looks of those present now, that it's very ripe to have Mashiach coming, because there's not too much more knowledge or brain power that is to be added from Heda. Arizal says there is an item called Yesher. Yesher means goodness, consideration that one has for another, kindness and compassion. Pity, kindness, consideration. Now, everywhere in every person there exists this quality of Yesher. No matter how bad a person is, even a person who is a vicious type of character, who is a criminal thoroughly, still has a degree of this goodness in him. A tiny amount, a tiny spark of it, but he does possess a degree of this Yesher. The difference is that when is this good feeling aroused in a person? One whose character is good and kind, that good feeling is always present. Or if he does anything at all slightly wrong, he feels a sense of remorse, a sense of regret. He's sorry about what he did. He wants to make amends. A person who is not that good does wrong acts, and his sense of regret begins at a much later time. One who is very evil goes through a long process of evil acts till finally at one final stage he begins to feel sorry for having gone that far. Each person gets to that stage eventually. It says, for example, let's say a person who steals, a thief. One who is a thief actually has no consideration for someone else's property or money. He will steal without feeling any pangs of remorse, without feeling any sorrow or regret or consideration for the other person's loss. But if it gets to the point where he has to take this by force, and it will mean to have to kill for it, there is aroused in this person a degree of Yesher to steal, yes, perhaps hurt someone, but to go so far as killing, that definitely not, because he has the Yesher that is awakened at that point. Another person who goes still further, people who commit murder. This, of course, was rare in the olden days. Nowadays, it is so commonplace that they usually have one murder with their breakfast to start the day right. But you have ones who commit murder, however, even they will be slow in hurting someone physically. They would want to make the death a simple one, a painless one, so that if they have to torture someone, they could not get themselves to do it because that degree of Yesher is awakened in them. Then, of course, you have certain ones today, these dark ages, when there is no feeling of that kind at all. Among the so-called youth, among the vicious type of wild beasts that roam the earth today, who will attack the aged, attack the elderly, and without any consideration at all for humans, they will not only kill them, but stomp them, literally torture them to death. Where does their degree of Yesher begin? there, of course, Arizal says every person has it. You've got to go very, very far to find the slightest spark of Yeshua in them. There is possibly a tiny spark, but it's very difficult to find it. This, of course, proves to what degree the human race has deteriorated today. That there is so much evil, so much viciousness existing today, that today it's commonplace. What we witnessed years ago in Germany among the Nazis, their evil and killing, wanton murder, today is so commonplace among so many. But again, the Menachem says it does exist a drop, a touch of Yeshua everywhere. So as long as there is life, there is a drop of goodness, though it is so minute, so minuscule, so hidden, it does exist in every person. Menachem gives an example of the case of a man, an officer, a high officer, who comes to one's home and demands, as an officer, one of authority, he demands that this person give him, this farmer give him a few of his horses. And the farmer pleads with him, he needs the horses for his livelihood, and he bribes this officer, he gives him a monetary bribe to release him. The officer leaves, and then the officer's assistant comes also to demand the horses. Again, this farmer bribes the officer's assistant. A third one comes to demand these horses, and the farmer goes to the officer and pleads with him to save him, rescue him from these demands. By this time, the officer feels that the farmer has suffered enough. And so he tells the third party not to harass the farmer any longer. So we see that this officer's pity and kindness took a while to become aroused, but it did get to that point. Menachem says this is what is meant, the secret wording of the Zayda Kodesh says that we have the right side and the left side. The right side always stands for the good, the pure, the holy. The left side stands for the klipos, the tumah, the impure, the evil spirits. There is a right and a left. The Zayda Kodesh says it is important to note that it is true there is a right and a left, but the left side, that is the entire left side itself, also consists of a right and a left. The left side too has its own right and left, which means that on the left side, where there is impurity, where there is evil, that too is comprised of a right and left, meaning there is some good even in the evil itself. There cannot be anything which is completely evil. When we say this as fact, when we go to the essence, the core of evil, the Satan himself, it was called the Samach Mem. Samach Mem is for the first two letters of his name. The word he's called Samach Mem because the word Samach Mem means poison. He's Satan, but the last two letters of his name are Kale. He has the letter Kale, just as every angel, Gabriel, Michael, has the letter Kale at the end of his name, that phrase. Then this angel too, the Satan, the Satan has this term, this phrase too. The letters Aleph, Lamed, or Kale. And this shows that even the Satan, who is the essence of evil in existence, who is the leader of all the evil angels, yet he too has a right side. Therefore, we understand, the Tikuney Zohar says that when we say that eventually, you recall the Chad Gadya at the end of the Seder, we say that eventually the angel of death, that is the Samach Mem, that is the Satan, will be slaughtered by Hashem. The Haggadah uses the word slaughtered. Slaughtered means to use a knife to bisect, to cut in half. How will Hashem cut the angel in half? Why not just stab him? The answer is, cut him in half means to cut off the evil part from the good. Cut off the letter Samach Mem, which is the evil, and there will remain that drop of good which is contained even in the Satan. Therefore, the Zohar Kodesh says that even on the left side, evil side, there is still a right there too. This carries out the lesson, the wording of Arizal, that there is yesher and goodness everywhere. Some places, of course, it's very difficult to locate, to bring to the surface that yesher. But it does exist, and this is a lesson for each person to search within himself. Find out, put yourself on a scale and see how good you are, at which point you begin to have consideration for others, at which point a person might be ruthless, inconsiderate, and to see, to cure this very serious disease. The disease of inconsideration for others is what brought about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So each person should see to it to purify himself, especially in his character. Menachem says when a person attempts to purify himself, to better himself, especially the best path is to come close to attach oneself to a tzadik emes. This way a person becomes pure. And yet, when a person attempts this, he lived a life that was not too good, not too pure. There were sins and wrongs that were committed. He decided, finally, I've done enough wrong. I want to start leading a good life. Let me return to Hashem. Let me go to the tzadik and begin to learn from him the words of wisdom that will purify me. A person does that, his intentions are perfect. And yet he finds that in going to the tzaddik or in doing these good deeds, there are a lot of barriers and obstacles that suddenly come up in front of him. Things that before never bothered him, now he finds that there are difficulties. He wanted to go to a ball game or go to a place of enjoyment or entertainment. He'd never have any barriers or obstacles. Suddenly he wants to go to a class of Torah, and now his wife says, tonight we've got to go out, we have a family meeting. Or he gets a business call as an important buyer or customer to see you. Or he finds that he just doesn't feel so well suddenly, he's very tired. Or he's very sleepy. He was never sleepy or tired, never had objections by anyone before. No, he wants to start doing good. Everything is standing in his way. What is the reason for this? The example is that if you have waters that seem to be pure, clean, yet the sediment, the dust, has settled on the bottom. When you put that water up to boil, you'll find that the entire water becomes cloudy, because all the dust or rust on the bottom rises now to the top. It is then, though, that a person can really purify this, because by taking a spoon, he just combs the soiled part, the psilus, the waste matter of the water off the top as it floats on top. Now the entire water is pure. So when a person comes to the tzadik emes, what happens is that there begins to boil within him, see within him a battle between the good and the evil. And the evil side doesn't want to lose a good customer. Here he had one who listened to his bidding. He was doing things that were wrong all along. Now he wants to desert it, to go to the good. So he tries to stop him. This, of course, is the work of the same Satan we're talking about, the Zohar. He tries to stop him with every type of barrier or obstacle possible. And this brings about this boiling within him. But if he is stubborn in a holy sense, he goes to the tzaddik is the one who will take, by very smooth action, will take all this waste matter from the top and will find himself completely pure. But it does take a stubbornness on his part. He must show a determination, a very fierce determination to battle against all these obstacles. If he does, if he succeeds, he will find the reward to be so rich, because he'll feel a sense of cleanliness and purity throughout. Ashrei to that person who is successful and victorious in this battle. Menachem says that In this battle now, note that every paragraph is somehow interrelated. Person trying to do good in general, trying to be pure, trying to do mitzvahs, will have to contend with, there's no way out, he has to contend with the Yetzer Hara, which means the evil angel who attacks every single person attempting to perform a mitzvah. This is a war which he must wage throughout life. The Melchemes Hayetze, Melchemes HaChayim, a lifelong struggle against this angel. Now the angel is so powerful, he has miracle powers. Naturally, the angel of death, or the Satan, the same angel, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is so powerful he can perform miracles. To our understanding, he's much stronger, much faster than Superman, because the infinite speed of the angel is such he can travel distances from heaven to earth in no time at all. Or he can move mountains, or he can transform himself into anything he wishes, or he can even enter into a person's mind. He can even poison a person's mind if necessary, against someone. So that this battle is a lifelong struggle, and the one thing that should sustain a person is the knowledge that Hashem is on his side. You cannot do battle against the Satan yourself. That is definite, that's understood. A person is too weak to overcome this powerful angel. However, the person who sets out in battle against this angel, he must know that it is a fact that Hashem is with him, Hashem will assist him, and he will be victorious in the end. Therefore, the Menachem says the battle against the Satan, which seems like moving mountains or moving worlds, is a simple battle compared to a second type of battle which is much more serious. And that is to do battle against a human being, which is much worse than doing battle against an angel. The Satan has limited powers to try to stop one from performing his mitzvahs, try to stop one from following the bidding of the Torah. But if a person falls into bad company and bad friends, those who are irreligious, those who have the evil notions of philosophy, those who question faith, those who mock religion, they are much more destructive and the most powerful of angels. They are much more dangerous. And therefore, we mention, for example, the Reformed rabbis. They have done much more harm to the cause of religion than the Satan and all his hosts of angels, or any of those who study or spread the poison of philosophy, which means questions about Hashem, questions about religion, arguments against faith. Those have done more harm to draw people away from faith than the most powerful of angels. The reason is because an angel is still, actually, we mentioned many times the different worlds that exist. 4 different levels of worlds. This earthly world, which means this universe we are in, and above it we have the angelic world. Above that, the still higher spiritual world of the Shekhinah, the Spirit of Hashem, and so on. Now, the angel comes from one single world, is vested with powers that originate in that world. He uses these powers against the person. He's a formidable opponent. But he has only one series of powers for that one world. A human being, on the other hand, is made up of parts, different parts, just as the organs of the body, the arteries correspond to the mitzvahs of the Torah. The Torah is all-encompassing. So too is the spirit, the soul of the person, made up of different parts of different worlds. And therefore, the person can be more effective in doing harm and destroying even than an angel. The Arizal reveals the fact that there are many times that the Satan will step back, will retreat, and take a back seat when he sees that there is a person about to attack another one. A person who is a disbeliever, an atheist, the Satan will say, be my guest. You can do more harm than I can. Take over. We see this also in this past week's portion. We read there that the brothers wanted to kill Yosef HaTzadik. This, of course, was a pitiful act. Brothers wanting to kill their own brother. For whatever reason it was a tragedy. However, the Torah says, V'yishma Reuven, the oldest one, the Reuven, decided to rescue Yosef HaTzadik in the hands of his brothers. How do you rescue Yosef HaTzadik? Was he going to do battle against them? What chance would he stand? So he had to use his wits. He said to the brothers, why should we kill him with a sword? Why should we spill his blood? Here we have a pit that is more than 20 feet deep. He cannot escape from this pit in any manner. Plus the fact that on the bottom of this pit, the pit is filled with poisonous snakes and scorpions. One sting from the scorpion, one bite of the snake, the poisonous fangs of the snake will kill him instantly. Drop him into this pit, he'll step on one of these many snakes there, he's finished. Let's do it that way. The brothers agreed. And so Yosef HaTzadik was dropped into this pit, and with this it says Reuven did his best and he rescued his brother, he saved Yosef HaTzadik. Is that a nice thing to do to a younger brother? Take him and throw him into a pit of poisonous snakes that are just waiting for the chance to pounce and to kill. How is this called a rescue, and one which the Torah lauds, commends, no end? Throughout the entire Torah we find again and again the greatness, quality of mercy of Reuven, his wonderful humanitarian act in saving the life of Yosef HaTzadik. He threw him into a pit of poisonous snakes and scorpions. We add the word scorpions because the Gemara says that a snake, a poisonous snake, sometimes, many times, will not harm a person unless the snake is attacked or unless he's aroused for some reason. But if a person stands perfectly still, it is very possible and most probable that the snake will not attack him. However, a scorpion is so vicious, has such a rotten character, that without being attacked, without provocation at all, the scorpion will sting and kill a person. This pit was a real bargain basement. It had both snakes and scorpions, very narrow. There was no way for Yosef HaTzadik to escape them. So what is so commendable, what is so heroic an act on the part of Reuven? The answer is that the Reuven said, I know what is written in the Sichos HaRan. I know what the Arizal said, that the worst enemy of a person is a human being. And therefore, if I rescue Yosef HaTzadik from his brothers, no matter where I put him, he's better off. Because an angel is less powerful, is less destructive than a person. An angel is surely more powerful than snakes and scorpions. So a person could be saved from an angel, and Yosef HaTzadik could be saved through his goodness, through his purity, through his holiness as a tzaddik, be saved by miracle from snakes and scorpions. But nothing can save him from these humans, his brothers, who will destroy. And therefore he said, I would rather risk his life in a pit of snakes rather than hand him over to his brothers, to the mercy of his brothers who are intent upon killing him. And this demonstrates the point. The Menachem says that a person should know to beware, extremely beware of the damaging effects of even conversation, to converse with those who have philosophical ideas, those whose minds are steeped in philosophy, and those who have atheistic inclinations, because you can do very little to affect them, to affect their minds to return to faith. They can much more easily do harm in spoiling your faith, whatever you have of it. Therefore, a person should avoid any type of contact with these philosophers, with these reform leaders, reform rabbis, whose bite is poisonous. Their talk alone, Arizal says, the edis, just as a snake gives forth poison from his fangs, so too the tongue of these reform leaders are the fangs of a snake, the poisonous snake. Just by speaking to them alone, a person's faith could be marred. A person should stay away from them completely, avoid any contact whatsoever. They should be considered as though they are in chaydim, something which they very much deserve to be. Menachem says again too, following this up in the next paragraph, that every person by nature basically is good. Perhaps not in character, but at least in faith. A person's faith is such that basically he is born with a degree of faith where he is inclined to believe, he is inclined to accept. If he is taught the Torah, he will automatically lean towards belief in it. And even if he does not, if he turns away from it, then he will feel a degree of regret, of repentance, and want to come back to it. But if he makes contact with these philosophers, with these who mock religion, especially those who make jokes about it, they can destroy that basic strength of faith that's found in every person. And this we could see very easily and very readily. The Gemara itself illustrates this, that when a person listens very intently to words of Torah, the Torah stresses the importance of belief. Believe in Hashem, believe in the words of the Torah, believe in the fact that if you do mitzvahs you'll be rewarded, believe in the fact that if you commit a sin, there is eventual punishment for it. There exists a Gehenna, there exists a place where you must be penalized for every single act that is wrong. Stay away from that which seems to be sweet and profitable, and eventually is very costly. These words have an effect on a person who learns them or reads them. But if you have someone present after a lecture of this kind or a shiur of this kind is given, and one person at the end begins to laugh and mocks this entire thing and says, who's worried about these things, chas v'sholom, old-fashioned, or whatever names they call them, these lessons, these items, live while you can, enjoy life, laugh it up, live it up, then automatically the effect is destroyed. A person who until then felt very much overawed by the lesson he had, sees that it's taken so lightly by someone else, he loses all respect for what he learned, he has no longer any fear for it, and everything that he gained is lost in just one stroke. And therefore, the Menachem says that though a person might have this basic inclination of belief, of fear, of respect for the Torah, if he comes in contact with these leitzonim, these jokers, these mockers of religion, they can destroy everything that he can ever gain. So again, Menachem says, be sure to stay away from, to avoid any contact with these people of evil. R Nosson. Menachem says that every person throughout life somehow must gain himself enemies. There are very few people, if ever, who go through life with only friends. No matter how friendly, no matter how kind he is, no matter how much he tries to help his neighbors and friends, there is always someone who is slighted, someone who takes offense, either on something that's actually done or something that is imagined, and he becomes his enemy. So a person must have enemies in life, one more and one less, of course. There are some who have a nature, they antagonize people automatically. They meet a person the first time, and the first word they say is an insult, that they gain a long list of enemies in life. But even those who are peace-loving, those who are kind, those who will not say anything harmful or offensive, too cannot avoid having people to become their enemies for one reason or another. Mendel says, though, that it is possible that an enemy can be one who is passive also, or one who is not dangerous. But also some enemies who are very dangerous, and ones who can go out to seek vengeance and destroy a person. You do something very small to hurt someone's feelings, and that person is out for blood as a result. Then again, a person can have enemies who are not really evil. He can have enemies who are tzaddikim. He finds that a tzaddik is his enemy. He tries to make a move, and the tzaddik yells at him. The tzaddik reprimands him. The tzaddik stops him. The tzaddik forces him to desist from doing something which he feels could be a beneficial gain, material wealth. He wants to start a business, become wealthy. It's a sure winner. And the tzaddik says, I forbid you to enter into this business. And this means to him, he considers this a loss of thousands. And all because of this tzaddik who is his blood enemy, stop him from gaining so much money. Mendel says this was the tefillah of David HaMelech. Hashem, I know that you favor me, that you like me, if I find that my enemies are not evil people. If I have enemies who are good, who are tzaddikim, I know that you are on my side. Arizal, the end of the Kutman says, posek that if I am to have enemies, then let these enemies be toiv v'chesed, good and kind. These two words, good and kind, refer to two kinds of tzaddikim. There is a tzaddik who is good, basically good. He is pure. He sits and studies Torah all his life, and he does mitzvahs all his life, but he is a loner. He does it for himself. He never bothers about helping others. So he never commits a sin in his life. But all the goodness is confined and contained within himself only. That tzaddik is called toiv, good. The second tzaddik is called chesed. Chesed means kindness. He doesn't keep it for himself. He devotes his time to going out to help his fellow man. He has knowledge. He goes out to share it with others. He has money. He goes out to see that the money is spread among those who need it. He has information that could help someone in business. He goes out and notifies them. He's not selfish to keep for himself. This tzaddik who is called chesed is one who goes out into the world to spread this tov, this goodness, and make it into chesed, kindness for others. The Melech said, King David prayed to Hashem and said, I know that I'm going to have enemies. And of course, no one had as many enemies as King David. But his tefillah to Hashem was, if I'm destined to have enemies, let me have these two enemies. Ach, toiv v'chesed yidifuni kol yamei chayai. Let these two, toiv and chesed, these two tzaddikim, be the ones that will harass me, that will pursue me, that will seek to harm me all the days of my life. These tzaddikim who will tell me, don't go into battle, don't go to sleep, don't eat so much. Such enemies I would enjoy. They'll tell me, don't go to business so much, spend more time on the study of Torah, don't stay home and waste time so much, leave your home a little earlier so you can come to class on time, so you can learn words of Torah that will benefit you because you don't come that often, so that this type of enemy is one that King David said, Yidifuni, let those harass me, pursue me, let them hammer me, let them give me the reprimands. I want that type because this is an enemy who really is the closest friend of all. Enemy like that is a tzaddik who can lead me on the righteous path. I should be zecha though, I should be privileged to have the sense to understand that this is not an enemy, it's a friend. I should have the intelligence to accept these words, absorb them, and to follow through, to obey, to carry them out. Then I will know that the enemies I have are really non-existent. They are friends. Arizal says every person must have enemies in life. He should seek, pray that his enemies should be just these tzaddikim, because they are enemies against his Yetzer Hara, against his evil, and the greatest friends a person can have. We should be zecher to absorb, to accept, to believe in faithfully the words of the tzaddik emes, Rabbi Arizal's words, and to become closer to Rabbi Arizal, to live with a true emunah in the tzaddik emes, emunah in the Torah Kedusha, and through this emunah we should be zecher to realize the fulfillment of our wishes of ages, to see with our eyes the coming of Mashiach now. Amen.